What happens when a feel-good morning chat meets a guest who refuses to play nice? On Live with Kelly and Mark, the cameras were set for sunshine and small talk. Kelly Ripa came armed with warmth, Mark Consuelos with calm. Meghan Markle arrived with a flawless smile and a fuse already lit. The first questions were soft. The answers weren't. By the time the coffee cooled, the studio would be a pressure cooker, the audience breathless, and a royal storm would be rolling straight through daytime TV. The set gleamed the way only New York morning light can make it gleam. Blue glass panels, clean white edges, a coffee mug staged just so beside a stack of cue cards. From the wings came the applause swell that always meant, here we go. And Meghan stepped into it. Cream blazer falling perfectly over a sleek blouse, a camera-ready glow chasing her to the guest chair. She shook hands, smiled for the second camera, crossed her legs at an angle refined by 1,000 red carpets, and sat. "Meghan, welcome," Kelly said, warmth like sunshine, cadence like a lullaby. "We're so happy you're here." "Thrilled to be here," Meghan replied, teeth catching the light. The smile didn't quite bother to meet the eyes. Mark, relaxed and attentive, leaned in. "You've had a big year. New projects, new partnerships. For folks just waking up with us, what's the big focus right now?" Meghan's answer landed like a press release. "Storytelling with impact. Elevating unheard voices. We're building platforms that actually move culture forward." The words were polished, the tone had a faint metallic ring. Kelly nodded. "Impact is a great word. With your new season coming up." She softened the transition with a tiny laugh. "There's a lot of curiosity about what you'll explore. Themes you're excited about?" "Resilience," well, Meghan said. "Agency. Refusing to be defined by outdated systems." "Outdated systems," Kelly repeated lightly, as if tasting the phrase. "Do you mean the industry, Hollywood, or the bigger one?" Meghan's smile sharpened. "If a system survives by silencing people, age is just a number." A murmur moved through the audience risers, too soft for microphones, loud enough for nerves. Mark absorbed it with a broadcaster's poker face. "Since you mentioned systems," he said, "you've spoken about control of your narrative. You step back from royal duties for privacy and health, understandable, but you've also been very public. Interviews, series, a best-selling memoir. How do you balance that?" Meghan's exhale was a polished blade. "Privacy is not silence, Mark. It's agency. I decide what matters. That's not a contradiction. That's adulthood." Kelly kept a smile. The eyes tightened a degree. "Totally hear you. And there's also business. Trade papers say negotiations for the new season were," a tiny shrug, "robust. Some fans wonder, did you ask for significantly more?" Meghan's laugh was pretty and pointed. "Isn't it funny how a woman asking market value becomes greedy while men call it vision? We align compensation with impact. That's not gossip. That's math." Kelly accepted the parry with a gracious nod. "So it's fair to say you pushed for parity." "It's fair to say we don't discount ourselves," Meghan replied, folding one hand over the other like the period at the end of a sentence. Mark pivoted gently. "Let's visit the personal, only what you're comfortable with. Viewers write us that they admire your marriage as a team. Separate travel schedules get amplified online. Anything you want to say to quiet the rumor machine?" Meghan's smile cooled by a degree. "Teams divide and conquer. Adults have calendars. If strangers need more than that, I suggest a hobby." A few nervous chuckles spattered the risers. Kelly, unruffled, slid to safer ground. "Okay, home life aside, your advocacy has resonated. Mental health, women's leadership. What does success look like this year?" "Stories that don't ask permission," Meghan said, and closing the door on noise. Kelly weighed her next card, then set it down. "Speaking of noise, you've been candid about the monarchy, how it felt for you. Some say your tone can sound, dismissive of tradition. Do you still feel as strongly today?" Meghan sat a touch taller. "Tradition without humanity is pageantry. I don't confuse costumes with character." The audience inhaled as one. Even the Steadicam seemed to steady further. Mark's voice stayed velvet. Do you see any path to reconciliation with the family? Fans truly do hope for that. Reconciliation begins with truth, not choreography, Meghan said. I don't perform apologies. Kelly's smile thinned, then recovered. You've said your truth many times. Others involved say their facts differ, timelines, details. Is there room for people to stop nitpicking my life? Meghan cut in, still smiling. That would be refreshing. It was the first clean thud on the studio floor. Kelly let it sit. Years of live TV had taught her that a beat of silence can do more than any follow-up. She tried again, softer. We ask because we care, and because millions care. Context helps. Context is often a velvet rope, Meghan said. It keeps certain people inside the story and others out. I'm inside mine. Mark glanced toward camera 2. Then let's give you that space. What do you want people to understand that they never seem to get right? That I don't owe them a performance, Meghan said without blinking. I share because I choose to, not because strangers are entitled to inventory my life. Kelly folded her hands, the ring on her finger catching a prismatic shard of light. Totally. And because this is also a show about breakfast table honesty, do you ever look back and wish a phrasing had been gentler? A moment handled with more grace? Meghan considered then, grace is sometimes code for be smaller. I don't do smaller. The line skittered across the glass desk like ice. Mark nodded once, thoughtful, while Kelly took a calibrated breath. All right, Kelly said, voice still honeyed. One more businessy thing before the break. You've built a production brand very quickly. Some critics say the royal title opens doors even as you critique the monarchy. Is that tension for you? Meghan's smile returned, camera perfect and completely unamused. If a name opens a door, it's because the room wants me there. Tension isn't my problem. That belongs to whoever resents the invite. A few heads turned in the risers. Mark smoothed the air with a practiced grin. We're going to pause. When we come back, some rapid fire from viewers and a sneak peek at the new season. Lovely, Meghan said, though the word landed like a stamp, not a sentiment. Music rose. The applause light flashed. In the half shadow of the reset, a makeup artist drifted toward Meghan and drifted right back when she lifted one palm without looking. A floor manager whispered to Kelly, spicy. Kelly didn't answer. She stared at the empty middle distance of live TV, the place where charm meets honesty, and one of them has to move. 30 seconds, came the voice from the booth. Mark took a sip of coffee. You good? Kelly's smile was real this time, and complicated. Always. 10. Meghan shifted a fraction in her chair, cream blazer gliding, gaze already hardened into whatever came next. 5, 4, 3. The tally light bled to red again, and the studio felt smaller, closer, as if the city outside had leaned in to hear the answer to a question nobody had quite asked yet. Welcome back, Kelly said, brightness intact, steel beneath. Let's pick up where we left off, and the applause sign blinked again, and the audience dutifully clapped as the cameras cut back. The set looked warm, cozy, even inviting. But the air between the host desk and the guest chair was brittle, tight as a drawn bowstring. Kelly leaned forward, her posture polished but her eyes sharper than before. Welcome back to Leave with Kelly and Mark. We're here with Meghan Markle, who's been sharing insights into her new projects and her perspectives on, well, just about everything. Her smile was bright enough for the wide shot, but the undertone carried something else. Meghan crossed one leg over the other, the sleek line of her blazer crisp as armor. Yes, she said smoothly, and it's important people actually hear me, rather than the distorted noise they get from tabloids or, sometimes, from mainstream interviews. The implication hung there like a dart aimed directly at Kelly. The host swallowed it with practiced calm. Absolutely. And that's why we value these conversations, so viewers can hear directly from you. She picked up a card, then glanced at Meghan instead of reading. But Meghan, we do have to ask, because it's been a big story, there were reports that you demanded a significantly larger paycheck for the new season of your Netflix series. Some outlets even suggested the production nearly stalled. How do you respond? The audience leaned in. This was the question they'd been waiting for. Meghan gave a low laugh, Sapa cutting. How predictable. A woman knows her worth, and suddenly it's a scandal. Do you ever ask male executives why they negotiate for more? Or is this fascination with my paycheck just another way of policing women's ambition? A ripple of murmurs moved through the risers. Kelly smiled tightly. I think viewers are curious because it's a public project with global attention. They just want to understand what they want. Meghan interrupted, her tone icy. Thing is to tear down a woman who refuses to apologize for success. And frankly, Kelly, I won't play into that narrative. Kelly took a breath, her smile still frozen in place. Mark leaned forward, his voice soothing. Let's broaden it then. When you talk about success, Meghan, what does that mean to you? Is it financial freedom, creative control, influence? What's at the top of that list? Meghan's answer came fast. Control. Always control. I refuse to live under institutions that try to script my every move. That was the opening Kelly had been circling toward. She tilted her head, voice light but pointed. Speaking of institutions, the monarchy. You've been outspoken about your experiences, but there are those who feel you benefited greatly from its platform while criticizing it harshly afterward. Do you see the irony there? The audience gasped softly. Mark's brow furrowed. He knew this was dangerous territory. Meghan's smile flickered, then sharpened. Irony. Number. Surviving a system while calling out its toxicity isn't irony. It's courage. People love to forget the cruelty I endured because it doesn't fit their fairy tale about crowns and castles. Kelly didn't back down. But some would argue you embraced the visibility, the status, the privileges, and then discarded the responsibility. Meghan leaned forward, her tone dripping with disdain. Kelly, you of all people should understand. Being visible doesn't mean being safe. And responsibility? Don't talk to me about responsibility when I spent years protecting a family that wouldn't even protect me. The audience had gone quiet, every eye darting between the host and her guest. Mark interjected, trying to ease the tension. It sounds like those years still weigh heavily on you. Do you see any chance of reconciliation with the royal family? Meghan's response was cold, almost rehearsed. Reconciliation requires honesty, and honesty has never been their strength. Kelly's patience stretched thin, her hands folded tighter, her tone softer but with a steel edge. Meghan, when you speak this way, do you ever worry you're alienating people who might want to support you? That the constant negativity toward the monarchy overshadows your other work? Meghan laughed again, this time bitterly. If people are more worried about protecting the monarchy's image than listening to the truth of a woman who lived it, then they're not the kind of supporters I need. A few people in the audience clapped hesitantly, unsure if they were cheering bravery or arrogance. Kelly glanced at Mark, who gave her the smallest shake of his head, as if to say, let it go. But she didn't. Not yet. Okay, Kelly said, her tone finally fraying. But don't you think it's fair for viewers to ask whether you're still benefiting from that same monarchy you call toxic? The titles, the attention, the platform? It all came from there, and now it sometimes feels like you're cashing the checks while tearing down the bank. The studio froze. Even the camera operators blinked at one another. It was the sharpest line Kelly had drawn yet. Meghan's eyes flashed with fury. That's a lazy narrative, Kelly. I've built everything I have on my own terms. The fact that people can't accept that is their problem, not mine. Kelly's jaw tightened, but she didn't fire back. Yet. Mark jumped in again, trying to soothe the sparks. We'll circle back after the break. More with Meghan Markle in just a moment. The applause sign lit, but the clapping was scattered and uneasy. Meghan adjusted her blazer like a shield. Kelly exhaled sharply and looked off to the side, jaw clenched. Mark rubbed his temple, and in the control booth, producers whispered to one another in disbelief. This was supposed to be late morning television. Instead, they were holding a live grenade. The red light above the camera flicked back on. The audience, still murmuring from the last exchange, hushed as the theme music faded. Mark Consuelo smiled into the lens, his voice calm but carrying a subtle strain. Welcome back to Live with Kelly and Mark. We're here with Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, discussing her latest projects and more. The applause that followed was tepid, almost reluctant. The air was heavy, charged with anticipation. Meghan sat back in her chair, arms crossed, her cream blazer crisp and pristine. She wore a smirk, the kind that dared anyone to challenge her again. Kelly straightened in her seat, her papers trembling ever so slightly in her hand. She was no rookie. Decades of live TV had trained her to smile through disasters. But Meghan's condescension was beginning to wear through even her practiced composure. "All right, Meghan," Kelly began, her voice measured but firm. "Before the break, you spoke about control and survival. But let's be candid, your Netflix series and other projects have made headlines not just for their content, but for reports of contract negotiations. Specifically, that you asked for a significantly higher payout for the upcoming season. Can you clear the air for viewers who wonder if this is about passion or profit?" A hush settled over the audience. Meghan's smirk widened into something sharper. The audience clapped uncertainly, half supporting, half uncomfortable. Kelly nodded, her smile tight. "I hear you, Meghan, but the concern isn't ambition, it's consistency. You've spoken about privacy, purpose, and service, but many feel the brand you've built looks more like celebrity PR. Doesn't that contradiction deserve to be addressed?" Meghan leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "Contradiction? Number. What you're seeing is evolution. If people can't comprehend that, it says more about them than about me." Kelly's lips parted as if to respond, but Meghan cut her off, her voice rising with irritation. "And frankly, I'm tired of women like you, media darlings, using their platforms to drag down other women just to appease an audience that feeds on controversy." The audience gasped. Kelly froze, the insult hitting harder than Meghan likely intended. Mark quickly stepped in, his voice low and soothing. "Let's take a step back. Meghan, I think what Kelly's getting at is the public curiosity, whether your projects are about storytelling or brand building. That's a fair question, don't you think?" Meghan flicked her gaze toward him, her expression dismissive. "Fair? What's fair about being interrogated for daring to want both? Men in this industry do it all the time. But when I do it, suddenly it's an agenda." Kelly's grip on her cards tightened. She inhaled deeply, forcing a smile. "Let's shift gears then. Meghan, you have often spoken about your challenges with the royal family. But do you ever worry that continually criticizing the monarchy alienates viewers who admired you when you first stepped into that role?" Meghan gave a short, humorless laugh. "Alienates them? Good. If they wanted a docile duchess who bows and smiles, they picked the wrong woman. I refuse to glorify a dusty institution that feeds off outdated traditions and blind obedience." Gasps erupted from the audience. A few clapped nervously, but most sat stunned. Even Mark's eyebrows shot up, his mouth parting in disbelief. Kelly pressed on, her voice firmer now. "But Meghan, isn't it true that much of your visibility, your global platform, even your current projects, stem directly from the very monarchy you now condemn?" The smirk vanished. Meghan's eyes flashed with anger. "So what? Does that mean I'm supposed to worship the system forever, no matter how damaging it was? That's absurd, Kelly. I made something meaningful out of a toxic situation. I refuse to apologize for that." The tension was unbearable now. The control room crackled with whispers, producers debating whether to cut to commercial. The stage manager's hands hovered near the signal, but Kelly leaned forward, refusing to break eye contact. "You say you refuse to apologize, Meghan, but what about accountability? What about acknowledging that while you criticize the monarchy, you've also profited from the association? Titles, visibility, global deals, none of that existed before Harry." The words landed like a hammer. The audience erupted with murmurs, a mixture of shock and approval. Mark shifted uncomfortably, placing a hand on Kelly's arm as if to rein her in, but she didn't move. Meghan's jaw clenched. Her voice, though calm, was laced with venom. "Accountability? Kelly, the only accountability I have is to my family and my truth. I will not sit here and be scolded for refusing to play palace puppet. You can keep your media theatrics. I've outgrown this circus." Her words rang across the studio like a slap. Kelly's face was pale, her composure cracking for the first time. Mark leaned in, whispering something off mic, but she shook her head firmly. The audience could feel it, the dam breaking, the storm brewing. Kelly set her cards aside. Then maybe, Meghan, it's time we talk about who's really putting on the performance here. The studio went silent. Meghan's eyes narrowed, her chin lifting defiantly. Kelly's patience had snapped, and Mark's efforts to smooth the tension were slipping through his fingers. For the first time that morning, the Duchess looked rattled, and everyone knew the final act was coming. The tension in the Live with Kelly and Mark studio had become unbearable. Even the air felt heavy, charged like the moment before a thunderstorm. Meghan Markle sat rigid in her chair, her cream blazer still immaculate, but her eyes sharp and unyielding. Kelly Ripa, America's morning darling, was no longer hiding behind polite smiles. Her cards were on the table, literally and figuratively, and Mark Consuelo sat between them, caught in the storm, trying desperately to keep the peace as the cameras rolled. Kelly leaned in, her voice measured but trembling with a suppressed edge. Meghan, you've said again and again this morning that you won't apologize, that you've outgrown the monarchy, outgrown media narratives. But viewers at home, they're starting to wonder, are you telling your truth or are you just rewriting the story to keep yourself in the spotlight? The audience collectively inhaled. Meghan's lips curled into a smirk. Rewrite? Kelly, I lived it. I don't need to rewrite what I endured. It's amusing, really, how people like you, who've never walked in my shoes, feel entitled to lecture me about my own life. Her tone was razor sharp, dripping with disdain. Kelly's jaw tightened. She swallowed hard, but her eyes never left Meghan's. Entitled, Kelly repeated slowly, as if testing the word. No, Meghan. What feels entitled is sitting here, dismissing every question with arrogance, while painting yourself as the only victim in every story. What feels entitled is trashing a family, a monarchy, an institution, yet cashing in on the very name and status that gave you your platform in the first place. The audience gasped. Some clapped. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Meghan's smile faltered. Her fingers gripped the armrest tightly. I don't need a platform built on a monarchy. I've built my own. Everything I have now is because of my hard work, Kelly's eyes flashed. Really? Everything? The documentaries, the multi-million-dollar contracts, the endless coverage, none of that would exist without the royal connection. Without Harry. You say you hate the monarchy, Meghan, but you've built an empire off of its shadow. Meghan leaned forward, her voice rising. I didn't choose that shadow, Kelly. It was forced on me, and if I've turned it into something positive, that's resilience, not exploitation. Mark placed a hand on Kelly's arm, murmuring, well, let's cool this down. But Kelly shook him off, her patience snapping. No, Mark. Enough, her voice carried across the studio, raw and unfiltered now. I've sat here and listened to Meghan dismiss every question, dodge every responsibility, act like she's above accountability, and I'm done. Absolutely done. The audience sat in stunned silence. Meghan blinked rapidly, clearly caught off guard. Excuse me? She said, her voice cold. Kelly didn't hesitate. You want honesty? Fine, here it is. You've treated this entire interview like we're beneath you, like you're doing us a favor by being here. But the truth, Meghan, is that your arrogance has worn thin. You criticize the monarchy but still use the title. You say you want privacy but sell your story at every opportunity. You claim independence, yet everything, the fame, the fortune, the attention, started because of Harry. And instead of gratitude, all we've seen is entitlement. The audience gasped again, louder this time. Meghan's face reddened, her lips parting as if to fire back. But Kelly's words kept coming. And let's talk about Harry, Kelly continued, her voice trembling with intensity. Because while you sit here tearing down his family, tearing down the institution, you forget something. That's his family. That's his blood. And no matter how you spin it, you've dragged him into every ounce of your bitterness. You've made him the sidekick in the Meghan Markle show. Kelly, Mark interjected, trying to calm her, but Kelly's focus was locked. You say you're strong, Meghan, but all I see is someone who hides behind excuses, someone who lashes out at anyone who dares to question her, someone who's built an entire brand on grievances. And I won't let my show, our show, become your stage for more of the same. Her voice cracked, not from weakness, but from the weight of truth pouring out without filter. Meghan's face twisted, caught between fury and shock. She pushed herself forward, her voice shaking. How dare you? No, Kelly snapped, cutting her off. How dare you? How dare you walk in here dripping with superiority and expect everyone to bow down to your narrative? Enough is enough. This is not the place for your royal tantrums. Not today. Not on my show. The audience erupted in stunned murmurs. Phones lifted as they captured every second of the unprecedented clash. Meghan sat frozen, her hands gripping the armrest so tightly her knuckles were white. For the first time, the practiced poise was gone. Her voice cracked when she finally spoke. You think you can humiliate me on national television? You'll regret this. Kelly stood now, her petite frame radiating fire. No, Meghan. The only one being humiliated here is you, and you did that all on your own. This interview is over. You're done. The words hit like a gavel. Final. Irrevocable. Meghan ripped off her microphone, the wire tangling briefly before snapping free. She rose from her chair, her heels clicking sharply against the floor as she stormed toward the exit. Her face was flushed with rage, but her eyes glistened with the sting of defeat. The cameras followed her retreat until she vanished behind the curtain. The silence that followed was deafening. Kelly turned back to the stunned audience, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Mark placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice calm, almost pleading. Kelly. But Kelly shook her head, resolute. She looked directly into the camera, her voice steady now. To our viewers, I apologize for what you just witnessed. This is not how we conduct ourselves on this show. We strive for honesty, respect, and meaningful conversation. What you saw was arrogance pushed too far. And I will not allow that on Live with Kelly and Mark. The audience broke into applause, not loud but steady, supportive. Mark exhaled slowly, his hands still resting gently on Kelly's shoulder. The broadcast cut to commercial, but the damage and the drama was already immortalized. Clips would flood social media within minutes. Headlines would dominate the next day. And for Meghan Markle, the morning she thought would showcase her control had instead unraveled into a public reckoning. Kelly Ripa had snapped. Meghan Markle had stormed out. And America had just witnessed one of the most explosive confrontations in morning show history. What do you think? Did Kelly go too far, or was Meghan finally held accountable? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you never miss more dramatic showdowns like this.